if you walk into a situation and you're walking in as 2.0, but you feel 1.0 and they bring out your 1.0 and they're still stuck in their 1.0, that's like not a place you want to be. They don't make you feel 1.0, but if you are witnessing 1.0, like,
yeah,
you need to find new friends. It's time for spring cleaning. Hi, I'm Jen.
Hey, I'm Suzanne. Friend, today we're talking about childhood labels and what happens when you realize you don't have to live with them anymore.
Oh, okay.
So I would say that you and I grew up with some pretty specific labels that were assigned to us when we were younger and that we've talked multiple times about living through. And so I believe you were always labeled the pretty one and the artistic one. And I was the athletic one and the smart one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, accurate.
Oh, Lord. Yeah. So I think at the time, and I don't know if the same is for you, like it felt like such a compliment. Like I was like, oh, I'm the athletic one and I'm the smart one. But also at the same time, the flip side of that was, well, if I'm not the pretty one or I'm not the artistic one, then the absence of being that must mean that I'm the ugly one. And I'm like the least creative person in the world. And I wonder for you, if you felt like in the absence of not being the smart one or the athletic one, if you felt like you were the opposite of that.
1,000,000%. I didn't realize it at the time, but now looking back, absolutely. And it like was my identity. Like not because, well, we could just go down a hole. Let's see where you're going with this first.
Yeah. Well, but and I'm curious, and this is much more of like kind of a back and forth because I think in this particular scenario, we lived it together for so long, but in different ways. And I feel like the lens I lived my life was, so growing up, it was like, while it felt like a compliment, it also felt like so much pressure. Like if I'm not the perfectly athletic one, or if I'm not the best athlete or the smartest person in the room, then I'm failing at the two things that I actually am.
That I am.
Right?
Your identity, right? Like
exactly.
that is who I am. That is what I am. So yeah, what I was going to say is, so I never believed myself to be pretty, which is interesting. I was told that, but I think it was because however it was communicated to me or how I interpreted it was, you're just pretty. So you get everything because you're pretty. You actually don't earn anything. You just get things, you get in rooms, you get with people, you get jobs, whatever, because you're pretty. And so it was that nothing else really mattered. But I still never truly believed myself. I mean, I didn't believe myself to be ugly per se. Like there's always somebody more beautiful and there was always somebody getting more attention than me or being told they were beautiful. Like I don't know how to explain it, but it was never, one, it was not a label I was comfortable with. And two, it seemed like a bad thing, like long term or like in actual life.
And I feel like so many celebrities have said that over time. So many female celebrities have said exactly what you said. And what's interesting is, so while you felt like it didn't fit, I felt like they were the only thing I actually was. Like if I weren't these two things, my God, I was like nothing. And so I feel like and I know we had a prior episode where I talked about like being a D1 athlete and I felt like a fraud. Or like being a lawyer or have my own law firm, it always felt like a fraud. And so it's these really like interesting ways that we perceive labels. But I also want to talk about, so like that was on the one hand. And then the flip side was, like I said, well, if I'm not pretty, so I'm not going to dress up. I'm not going to put on makeup. I'm not really going to, because if I try, and then I'm not pretty because clearly I'm not the pretty one, then no one can say anything to me, right? So you're staying small. And then I went to college and it was like, and I was just talking to my son about this the other day. Like, it's so strange when you change atmospheres or you meet new people, you get to reinvent yourself. And I remember I went from California to New York. So literally knew no one. and no one knew me. And it was kind of this opportunity. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm going to play with like, okay, maybe I'm going to wear like some nicer like clothes or some more form-fitting clothes. Cause I was very comfortable in my athlete clothes and things like that.
For
right.
Sure.
Now meanwhile, in volleyball, dude, you played in like your little spandex and your tight shirt. So let's be mindful that like, I wasn't at the tight clothes, but it was the effort of going out and looking like that. And then going out and like getting male attention, which is what I was seeking. Right. Or even, just like from other girls, like, and then I'd go out and there'd be girls on my team that would get more attention. And I'd be like, oh, see, like it reinforced that you're not pretty.
It proved your belief.
Because that was the lens that I was looking through, right? Like if my identity is this, I was looking for evidence that this was true. And now I recognize that. And I was like, oh, but Suzanne, you were calling for that. Like you were going out and you were like putting that out into the universe. So that's what you were getting back at the time. And I don't feel like until I got older that I started to want to heal, to be like, hey, you are pretty. And I made myself stand in front of a mirror. I've told you this. Naked. Yes. And be like, you're beautiful. Like you're a beautiful person. You are pretty. It is not the absence of, it is not, there's, comparison and all these other things that are just killers for all of our self-esteem. And it started to be like, oh, and you don't have to be the smartest person in the room or the most athletic. Like you're enough. And it just goes back to that same thing about like, you're enough just the way you are. And these labels, that's other people's way of like making sense of a world that is really difficult for all of us to maneuver. And that just because there's labels on things doesn't mean that that's all that you are, that it's true. Like that's that person's story. Like maybe that was our parents' story. And then in turn became our parents' friend's story. And in turn became our story. And
then we share that story. And I feel like people don't realize, like you were just saying, I want to go back to that. You were looking for evidence that it was true. And what I would have said now as a more healed version is like, why were you not looking for all the evidence that made it not true? Like you didn't take the fact that like somebody said your dress was pretty, somebody told you you were pretty, or you looked great. Like none of that mattered. You were looking for the one person who didn't choose you over another girl at the bar, right? So I guess my point is there could have been 100 reinforcements. What that belief was just absolutely not true. And you're beautiful, right? But if just one person didn't like you over somebody else, or one person said some snide remark about your outfit or whatever, or perceived, right? Like they didn't even say anything, but you're like, see, I'm not getting any attention tonight. It was like, oh, well, see, it's true, which is so interesting because we watch our kids do it all the time. And we think like, what are they doing like that? Like they just got 100 things over here and one thing over here, and they're going with the one thing and you're trying to explain it to them. But like, we're all doing it. We're just trying to prove it's true.
Yeah. And I think so it came super relevant this last weekend. I was coming out for your 50th birthday / post podcast launch party.
Yes.
And I'm in the car talking to my oldest about, like how you kind of get an opportunity to reinvent yourself in high school and how there's new people there. And you don't have to be this one thing or another thing. Like, who do you want to be and how do you feel and that you are enough and all the things we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting in the airport waiting to come to your party. So I'm in California, Jenn's in Dallas, and a bunch of your friends are flying in from different places, people from high school and people from college. So you and I have always had, for our friend listening, like we've always had like our own set of friends that you like hang out with my friends or I hang out with your friends. Like we've had a couple of like crossover, but it's usually like more yours, more mine, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
And so I hadn't been around that set of friends in a while. And so, they were, like I said, high school, early college that have continued friendships. And I found myself sitting in the airport being nervous and being like, oh, like, what are they going to think of me? And so this time it was a new label because it was like, as we've talked about, Jenn and I didn't speak for a year. And I was like, what did she tell them during that period of time? Like, they must think I'm the worst human being ever. And I found myself sitting there being like,
oh my gosh. It's true. For sure. Oh, for sure I said that.
But you know what I mean? Like, we all say things when we're angry and hurt and all the things.
Sure.
And like, at the same time, I had to sit and have a full like DSE moment where I'm like, okay, discover this right now, Suzanne.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting insecure and worried that these people are going to think you're the worst version of yourself because of events that took place 8 years, 9, 10 years ago at this point. I don't even know how long it's been.
Way more, way longer.
Has it? Okay. And then also, like, what if they think that? Like, what's your purpose of going there this weekend? But the label of like troublemaker, bad sister, like those labels that I had made up. So like, first there was a set of labels that I talk about that were like, I think our parents, and then there's the own labels that we make up, and like this, and then in turn, because this was the story I had created about what your friends might think about me. And we were all going to be together for like 2 days, do a hotel, shopping, hang out. And I was hanging out with these women. And so I just started discovering those thoughts. And I'm sitting literally in John Wayne Airport being like, Suzanne, let's take a breath, take a beat. Does it matter? Like, you're there for your sister. And it's been a long time. And like, what does it matter if that was the story? And all of a sudden I'm like, because I'm like, no offense, but like, they're not my friends. Like, and what if, like, I think lots of things about friends and other people, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't like them or that they don't like me or that we can't have fun together and all the things. But it was so interesting. So anyways, going back to the DSE, so I like shifted that perspective to be like, I'm just going to go enjoy myself and be the person who I am today. Because I can't control, and I felt so empowered. I can't control what anyone thinks of me. It's the same story. It's the same concept we keep talking about, which is I can't control any of that. And so then fast forward and we get to the Pros launch party, and I'm meeting your friends, other new friends that I've never met before. Who have listened to our podcast and are there to support us for our post launch cast party. and now I'm thinking to myself, these people must think I am an absolute nutcase, right? Like, these people have heard my most inner deep thoughts and they just must be like, what? And so now I'm discovering this as I'm walking, because I hadn't even thought about this walking into that party.
I honestly hadn't even thought about the fact that like they would be so excited to meet you because they feel like they know you.
Yes. So then I was like, Suzanne, calm yourself. Like, it's okay. Again, this was the whole point of the podcast. You were putting yourself out there with your sister to help other people. And the coolest thing happened. I mean, so many people came up and were excited to meet me and were like hugging me and telling me how much we had helped them. And like everything that you and I had talked about this podcast, like how can we help people? And they're mimicking it back to me, giving me hugs. And it was such a cool, amazing experience. And here was all the evidence that I needed. And I was really trying to soak that up and be like, this is positive evidence of things that are actually going well. Don't look for the negative. Don't make them think like, that was the shift. Like, yes, they might have lots of opinions about me, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Like, and I felt so good and so like supported, and such lovely people that you have met along the way that were there. And it was just further evidence of like these labels that we create, what type of evidence you're looking for to support them.
Yeah. And the labels become, I don't think people realize labels become your beliefs.
Yeah.
About yourself, about others, like whether you label someone else or whatever. And they literally, without you knowing, and it's so funny because I'm doing an episode on this like coming up, but you don't even realize that they're dictating how you live your life, like how you show up places. Like you said, like if I'm not the smartest in the room and if I'm not the, most athletic person, then I'm failing. Right. And then you get into like all
by the way, let's set ourselves up for failure right there. Because when is anyone ever the smartest person or the most athletic? Like there's like massive debates on ESPN.
But in your mind, right, you're like, okay. And then you get into your 20s and, we have all the stuff going down because unfortunately, we'll get into all of that. We've brought stuff again, things we've learned, survived, were taught. We brought all that into our young adulthood. We're trying to unpack that all while starting new lives. I mean, the whole thing's like imploding, I would say, through our whole
Yeah.
20s. It was just like a big implosion, all sorts of stuff.
I guess it
And
has been a
so,
long time.
yeah, but then you're like, okay, but that's like your 1.0 version. And I know we talk about like a lot about our 2.0 version, but like, let's be honest, there's like, we're probably on our like, I don't even know, like 102.0 or whatever. But it's so true because when you bring, like, let's just call Suzanne 1.0 into everybody else's 2.0, I think what you also learned, I would say, from hanging out with those original friends, like for the birthday party, that like they have also come into their 2.0s, right? And so it's
For
like
sure.
everybody, not necessarily, but my group of friends for the most part has been on their own healing journey. And part of healing is honestly not judging and like understanding that people are just that's where they were at this time, and that we've all made so many mistakes and we've all done things we wish we would have handled differently, and that it doesn't define you. Like, I think that's the thing, is we have this idea that all the mistakes we've ever made define us, but all the good things we've ever done don't define us. It's just like, it's the same thing as like the belief in trying to prove it to be true versus proving it to be untrue. And so I think that that was like such a cool experience for you, because I could tell you were having so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody's moved on. Like everybody has like, and it's like we're all sitting there unpacking all of our 20s and just like all the crazy things going on, and like family stuff and husband stuff and kid stuff. It's like everybody's just going through it. And I think the cool thing is that you realized that like those people were going through it too, and that they were in a new place. And then you got to like my even newer friends, if you will, the ones that I've met in Texas. And some of them were like friends I've met within the year. Some of them I've known since I got here, 11 years ago, which is crazy. And then you're around them. And if they're listening to our podcast, they're on their healing journey, period, end. Whether you're at the beginning or nearing the end, not that you ever near an end, but like no matter where you are on your healing journey, like those people, like what I realized after you were explaining like how you were feeling is like, oh yeah, I've really made it a point to surround myself with people that are on their healing journey. And I think what I wanted to like back into is if you would have got to the hanging out with the girls or gotten to the party or whatever, and your 1.0 was nervous, but you got there and those people are still 1.0, like you would have survived and it would have been fine, because you were going into it like, I'm showing up as me, and who I am now is who I want to be. And I would like them to judge me for who I am now. But if you would have got there and everyone was still 1.0, you would have been like, I never want to hang out with these people again,
Sure.
and that's okay too. And so I think that people need to realize that like, if you walk into a situation and you're walking in as 2.0, but you feel 1.0 and they bring out your 1.0 and they're still stuck in their 1.0, that's like not a place you want to be. And I know that's like not, it's a little bit off track, but they don't make you feel 1.0. But if you are witnessing 1.0, like,
yeah,
you need to find new friends. It's time for spring cleaning.
Yeah.
So,
no, I think that's true. Yeah. Because I think though that's kind of the next step with labels, right? Because if you go back to feeling like the person you were with those labels, then you need to move forward with a different group of friends, or at least be mindful of it, I guess.
Absolutely.
But I think just in wrapping up, like, I think labels feel like a lot of truth. I feel like they feel like the only truth, but really they're just someone's stories, whether they're your own stories, the stories you grew up with, the stories, your insecurities. So you create a story.
Oh, totally.
Whatever it is. But I think that if you just be mindful of that's going to continue to help us grow. That if we find ourselves labeling something or responding in a way to a label about like, oh no, they might not like me because I'm X or Y, that you need to pay attention to it.
Yes. And then I think what you said was great, is like, you got to let go of the label. Because I think we all think like, I wish I was this. I wish I was that.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you tell yourself, oh, I can't be that because of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because of this label. And so if you find yourself being like, I wish I showed up more pretty, I wish I was more athletic, you can make a decision today and be that. Like nobody says you can't be that. Like, okay, you might not be able to make, the MBA at like 50, right?
Yeah.
But for the most part, like, I think that's what you're trying to say. Like the label may have defined you your whole life because it was given to you and you followed it or you made the stories or whatever. But literally today you could be like, yeah, I'm going to start showing up with makeup every day and like putting effort into looking pretty today.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, no, I identify as pretty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a great takeaway, right? Because that's what you did in every situation in your adulthood, the 20s, and then this past weekend, you were showing up as who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
Not who you thought you were. It was who you wanted to be. And I think that's a huge decision. So, question for the listener, I would say, what label did you grow up with that you are still carrying around that you don't necessarily want to be? Yeah, well, that's it for today.
I hope you discovered something in my story.
See you next time. Same place, same sisterhood. Bye.
Bye.